Welcome back to the Keegan and Company podcast. Very exciting episode. Today we spoke to Olympic gold medalist and world record holder, Kaylee McKeown. Kaylee is an absolute legend. We talked about all of her success at Paris at the last Olympics, as well as a more raw and emotional topic of how she lost her dad in 2020. It was incredible. Like, Kaylee was so open and honest in this conversation, and it was a side of her that I didn't know, and I think a lot of people haven't really seen before. Huge props to Kaylee for being so open in this episode and just being herself. She just has, I think, a lot of love, and she just wants to see people get better, which I really relate to and really subscribe to. So guys, if you do like this episode, or if you have liked any of our other episodes, if I could get you to subscribe, hit that little subscribe button. It's a great way for us to grow this podcast and grow this platform and push these messages like Kaylee is speaking today. What I did come to notice or what I came to realize afterwards was that one person every 5 hours is diagnosed with brain cancer, which is a pretty alarming statistic. I didn't realize how common that statistic was. So you'll find out more in this episode. Disclaimer, if this is triggering, enjoy the episode. McKeown, how you going?
I'm good, thank you.
Hey, we made it happen. How's your morning been?
It's been quite busy, but wouldn't have it any other way.
Back on the Gold Coast. I feel like we have to talk about Paris. Beautiful lead in. You've actually got a couple little goodies there that we're going to lead in with.
I do.
Can we have a look? What do we got?
So we've got a few. They're all bagged in socks though, because the boxes are way too big.
Wait, so is this where you keep all your... Oh, that is so good.
I'm not the only one, so I'll pass it on to
look
you
at that. Fire out. They're heavy, yeah?
Yeah. So that'll either be the 100 or 200. It'd say on like the rimming of it.
Gotcha. Oh, what do you mean?
Like on the underneath.
Wow.
No.
What do you mean the rim? Oh, underneath.
There you go.
Yeah. 100 meter.
Yeah, there you go.
Dos Fems. Is that, am I saying that
right?
That's so sick.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, an incredible trip. And for those who are, this is terrible podcasting. For those who are listening and not watching, Kaylee brought out some of her medals that she stores in her socks. And so how many have you got in there?
So I've got 5, 2 individual gold and 1 individual bronze, and then a relay silver and a relay bronze.
Geez, you've got to be happy with that.
Very happy. I mean, it was a great experience being away and kind of just soaking it in the atmosphere this time, because back in Tokyo we didn't get any of that. It was very overwhelming, but you know, that's kind of what you live for, right?
Yeah, I'm really keen to unpack Tokyo. I'm really keen to unpack your career and your journey along here. But I kind of do want to start with Paris, right? Like, it was obviously incredible. Like, you and the girls did amazing. You brought some incredible success home. What was the prep like leading into Paris? What did that look like?
My prep this entire year was going really well. You know, I was pushing times and diving times I've never done in my career. So I was super excited to see what I could do in the water. And after our trials was the US trials, and my 100 backstroke world record got broken. And I knew it was going to happen. Like, I just had this feeling. I was like, yeah, like, records are meant to be broken. That's okay. It's going to make me hungry. I'll go in as the underdog for the Olympics, which is like the perfect way to be. But I didn't realize how much it would mess with me mentally leading in after.
What do you mean? Give me an example.
When we're in Cannes, which is probably about 3 weeks out from Olympics, I was just like so particular in every little thing that I did, so critical. And I was like panicking. I'm like, I don't feel right. Like, I feel like a rock in a bag getting dragged across the bottom. Like, what is going on? Like, I've been training so well. I'm 3 weeks out. What the actual? Yeah. And my coach is very level-headed, very mellow, and he did a really good job of like pulling me out of that spot and was like, you're doing well, just relax.
Is that what he said? Just pull it back and relax?
Yeah. He was like, literally just do what you've been doing this entire year and everything will fall into place. And I work really closely with my psychologist as well. So we're on the phone probably about once a week, whether usually it's about once a month.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So with all that being said, like, I knew within myself that I was just nervous because I really wanted to swim well. And I can say it now, but I really wanted that gold. And instead of thinking about the processes to get there, I was just like, oh my God, I have to race this girl. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And so was that helpful, do you think, breaking it down?
Absolutely. And I think being able to reflect on it now, I'm like, okay, well, I know what to do in the future. Don't panic. Just trust myself.
Yeah.
And I admire swimmers like Ariane because she just carries so much confidence in herself, and you can see it when she walks around on pool deck. And not in a bad way at all. I admire it and I want to be like that, because when I look at myself, I'm like, oh, like I'm so timid, I'm so shy when it comes to talking about like my successes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why am I like that?
Yeah.
You know? So it's something that I get to work towards now leading into the next Olympics.
It's a that's an interesting piece, because like I look at you, like you come in here, even like talking to you on the phone in the lead up to this, seeing you before, I feel like you're very an out there person. But is it just that specific thing about talking about your success?
I think I get a lot of anxiety, and it's really interesting too, because a lot of the interviewers are always like, you always seem so calm and like ready to go, and like behind the blocks, you look like you're ready to kill it. I was like, I am shitting bricks when I'm behind the blocks.
Really?
Like, I'm so anxious. Like a lot of the time you can't see it. Like I'm not the typical shaker putting my goggles on and that kind of stuff. But I guess I'm nervous by talking to people, and I have those really close relationships with my coach, like my psychologist, where I can dump all that on. It sounds bad that I'm a dumper, but that's just what I've got to do.
I think sometimes you need to do that with your anxiety. You talked about it behind the block and talking to people. What does that look like for you, like physically, or the thoughts that come to mind?
I think it's just like the expectation. Like that's such a huge thing, and I never thought I'd be the person to look at like interviews or comments that people put up on social media. And I remember watching one of my like podcasts and having someone comment on it, and it wasn't a very nice comment. And I was like, is that really what people think?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just a girl out here trying to make the best version of myself. I don't care if I come first, last, second, third. I'm just proud to be me, represent my country. That's good enough in itself. So when I take it back to that kind of thing, that anxiety and like how overwhelmed I can get kind of like comes down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you... I want to get to the stage of like what happens, like how do you get to the space where you're feeling these emotions? I imagine they can be pretty raw and heavy emotions. What do you do to sort of level out or stay neutral?
Sometimes I just cry.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to let it out.
For sure.
I try my best not to take my anger and anxiety out on other people, especially the ones that I love the most.
Yeah.
Sometimes my mum and sister cop it quite a bit, like you're just snappy.
Yeah.
But they understand that's, the process of me trying to get myself to perform, and I'm really thankful that they understand that. They're like, okay, she's not just being nasty because she's trying to be nasty to us.
Yeah.
But like I said, like it's all stuff that you learn along the way. I remember I was just a shell of a human when I think I was 16 on my first senior team. I walked out behind the blocks and I didn't know whether to take my jumper off first, my shoes off first. I was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like I was just in a blank mind space. To now step behind the blocks at Olympics and be like, okay, this is a really big stadium, got 200 meters to race. I'm fine. I've trained. I can't control anything else around me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty incredible like self-dialogue. I think I was similar to you, like coming into a like professional team, like when you're young. I think I was like 17 maybe, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on how you came in. But when I came in, it was just like a lot of people who you looked up to, right? A lot of role models, guys who were obviously playing Origin in Australia, and you're like, oh, well, these are the kind of guys I want to be. But I walked in and I didn't say a word because you're just so scared and you're so nervous. I look back, I was like, huh, probably anxiety. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I reckon for the first year, like you obviously like stay with the younger boys, but then obviously as you get older, you get to know everyone. Was that similar to you? You said you walked out as like a 16-year-old on pool deck, a bit shy and nervous. Yeah.
I was absolutely lucky to have my sister on that same team, so I clung to her like a leech. Like I would never leave her side. We roomed together. She was like, okay, do this, don't do this, don't annoy this person, that kind of thing. So I learned very quickly, but I think it would have been a lot different if I didn't have her there. I'm not saying that the people on the Australian swim team aren't friendly at all, but when you're 16 walking in, you feel like you have to prove yourself. And that was really hard to come by, because I was like, I've been the youngest in the squad. Now I'm the youngest on the senior team. How do I keep proving to these people that I deserve to be here? But ultimately I don't have to prove anything to them because I earned the right, to be in that position. And I know that now, but 16-year-old me wouldn't have thought of that. Thought it that way.
No, I love that piece. I always think, especially talking to a few of you swimmers, a few track athletes who are in the Olympics, right? And they talk about anxiety, right? They talked about nerves. But then I always think like, yeah, like a lot of us experience nerves and anxiety, right? But you do it on such an extreme level. Like you've been like you train. Obviously, you have world champs and there's
Yeah.
competitions leading up to it. But your big thing's the Olympics, right? And so I always think, well, is that the extreme, man? Like you talked about your like sometimes snapping with your mum and your sister.
Yeah.
But do you think it's just because it's such an extreme thing and it's like a 4 year build up?
Yeah, and mum will say something like, "Oh, how do you feel?" I'm like, "Mum, I don't want to tell you how I feel because right now I don't feel great, and I don't want to keep reminding myself."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You're annoying me. I'll talk to you later when I'm not when I'm not annoyed." And she's fine. Like she understands that. But it's so interesting for me to like sit in my own skin now and like constantly reflect. Like I force myself to look back at the Olympics and think about what I could have done better. And I'm proud of the athlete that I was when I was there. But even my coach, he's like, mentally, you have so much more to improve. I'm like, imagine if I was confident in myself, didn't have that anxiety, what I could achieve. But this is me, and I can't really change that for now,
It's a cool reflecting thing that you do. Are you usually pretty reflective?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going I'm glad you circled back to Paris because I do want to talk about Paris. Like I think because we're fresh off. You've been back for a couple of weeks. What do you think? Because you brought 5 medals home, pretty impressive. What do you think the race was that you were most nervous for?
Definitely the 100 backstroke. It was my first race of the week. Like I said, going in, I lost my world record, and it was not by a little bit either. And I was like, oh God, like what am I gonna do? But I kind of just brought myself back to the position I'm not meant to win. I'm ranked second here. Anything can happen. And going into the last 15 meters, that's the only race I've watched back post-Olympics.
Right.
And it was so close. Like I could see the Americans to the left-hand side of me, but I did not realize like how close it really was.
Yeah.
And I like to think that my dad was with me in those last 15 meters. I've said that so many times in post-race interviews. And honestly, like it's like a little superpower that I have. I like to think about it in that way. But it definitely was the most sentimental race to me from Paris.
You said he was with you, right? What do you mean? Is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Like what do you mean?
I don't know. I don't like I know a lot of people judge in this way, but I like to think that my dad's with me all the time, and it's such a special piece to me because I only got 19 years of my life with this guy. So if I can live my best life with him by my side, I feel like we're still living together. And that's what that means to me is like, he's there, he's like, come on, you can do it kind of thing. So it's special. And when it does come down to those last 15 meters, I know that those girls haven't been what I have been through emotionally in that way.
I've heard you talk about your dad before. And very delicate. I want to be very delicate on bringing him up. Is it because it's been a couple of years now?
Yeah.
Since you lost your dad, does it get easier to talk about? Because I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having like gone through what you've gone through because I haven't done it. I've had friends who have, but I couldn't imagine that feeling. Does it get easier to talk about this?
It doesn't get easier. Like there's good and bad days. Like some days if we were having this, I would already be in tears. And I feel like I will cry. I'm not scared to cry because it's something that's special to me, It's emotional and it brings out those raw emotions. And like I said, I was 19 at the time. How do you process that? Whilst at that time I was preparing for an Olympic Games. I'm like, do I put my family first? Like my career first? I have my dad telling me, I want to see you fulfill your dreams. And then he's on his deathbed. It's like, what am I doing? And swimming was my biggest outlet and I was able to just like get there and relax. And usually it was the other way around. Like home would be the time where I would relax, switch off. But swimming honestly saved me during that time, which has probably brought out such a deeper love for it. Yeah.
What do you mean it saved you?
Well, like I said, 19 during COVID, there's not a lot to be doing and to be like in and out of seeing my dad at that point in time, he was in palliative care and to watch him from going in the backyard, like fixing things, building things. He was a very hands-on guy and was our entire childhood, like building rope swings for us, that kind of thing. We had the best childhood, my sister and I, to then watching him try to learn how to wheel himself in a wheelchair. Like, I was like, this man must be going crazy inside. And he never once did he show that he was scared. And I was like, I would be shitting bricks thinking about, am I going to wake up tomorrow? Can I talk to my family tomorrow? And it got to the point where he wasn't able to communicate with us. He would like squeeze our hand. We'd be like, oh, we're here. Like, can you hear us? And you'd like squeeze your hand. And that's when we knew like it was getting real, real tough. And my mum, sorry.
That's okay.
I remember seeing my mum, and she spent every single night by his side in palliative care. And she just sleepless nights, like the bags under her eyes. I was like, this poor woman, like they'd been together since I was 16 years old. And that's a long time to see someone throughout their entire life to then just end it in front of you when you expect to, you know, have them there your whole life. Which when I come back to swimming now, it's like swimming isn't my whole life, but it's a small part of it that I really enjoy. And having that as that outlet allowed me to appreciate my life so much more.
Yeah.
It's like I'm privileged to have a healthy body, live in an environment where I feel safe, have a loving family. Like the love that my mum and dad had for one another is something that I really, truly admire. And when you see that stuff so young, you try to carry that as like a life lesson, you know what I mean? So when it is a shit day or, you know, you're not feeling great when you're rocking up to training, it's like, if I can give 100%, that's fine. My 100% might only be 80% today, but at least I'm healthy, I'm here, I'm living my great life.
It's like impressed, right? Like palliative care sucks. I recently lost my granddad, and he was in palliative care for a little bit, and it's a terrible thing, and I couldn't imagine being so close to someone like your dad and to have that time. But then also I like the way you said like you got to spend 19 years with him. Like you're grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of our friends, Liam Hampson, he died over in Barcelona a couple of years ago. I'm not sure, you might have heard about it. It was across the news. And we had AJ on, Brimson. He was one of his best friends. They lived together. And the biggest thing I got from that conversation, because I was just like, man, how do you go like talking about this stuff? And he's like, man, I really enjoy talking about this stuff because I don't enjoy it. It's hard, but it keeps names alive.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And we spread his ashes up at Double Island on the Sunshine Coast. And for me, that's such a memorable place because we spent so much of our childhood there. And every time we go there, they're like, my friend's like, oh, like, tell us a bit about your dad. And I love talking about him in that way.
What was he like? What was he like at Double Island and growing up?
He was like the ultimate Aussie, like beer in hand, fishing, camping, loved that stuff.
Yeah.
He was a miner. So, you know, we week on, week off, and the time that he was at home with us girls, he would take us to the beach, like take us out to creeks. Like I said, we had the best childhood. Very grateful for it. And he so mellow.
Yeah.
Like I can be quite feisty in what I say.
Never.
And very black and white. And he was a black and white person, but just the delivery and the way he said things. It was just, very peaceful guy.
Take me back to August 2020 when you first found out that he was got diagnosed with brain cancer. What was the conversation? Was it with him and your mum? So
my sister found out before me. We went to training that afternoon, and then I had a text from mum being like, oh, your dad and I would like to speak to you and your sister after your session at Taylor's house. And in my mind, I was like, oh, what the hell? Like, this sounds pretty big. Like, I was like, are they getting divorced? That doesn't make sense. Like, they're happy. Like, that was the first thing that came to my mind. And then my dad sat there and he's like, I've been diagnosed with cancer. And when you hear the word cancer, you're like, this isn't good. It doesn't matter what type of cancer it is. It means hell, basically. And I just remember sitting there bawling my eyes out. I was like, what kind of cancer is it? And he's like, it's brain cancer. And I didn't know much about it at all. And then we held it together pretty well. But when I went home with them, I started Googling. And then I was like, okay, it's a grade 4. That's really not good. Like the life expectancy of that is 2 years with surgery. And he told us that on a Thursday. And then the following Monday, he was in having his first brain surgery. It was a pretty big tumor, and it's scary enough going in for a brain surgery where things can go wrong. Like, we were told that he may not be able to walk or like talk, or short-term memory loss, all those kind of things because of where the tumor was in his brain. Thankfully, surgery went well. They removed a lot of it. And being the guy that he was, he did everything he could just to spend that little bit of time with us. I won't go into full detail, but he was trying literally everything, like dog worming tablets.
Yeah.
And he had some great results. Like, there was a reduction in the size of the tumor. Went in for a second brain surgery in 2019. Went to go in for a third one in 2020, and they said, no, it's too dangerous. Like, we can't do it. It'll be worse off. So from that point onwards, it was just time, really, matter of time, and that's hard.
What kind of questions do you ask your dad? Because you obviously, even for that last stage, you said that he was, it was too risky to go in. What kind of questions do you ask? What do you talk to him about?
A lot of that heavy stuff, my parents kept away from my sister and I. That was a choice that they made. Like, if there was a bad result, they wanted to make sure that they told us after a swim meet. They were very respectful of like our emotional state, physical state, all that kind of stuff. I've forgotten the question.
I said, what questions do you ask? I asked that because when I lost my granddad, we knew that he only had a little bit to go. But in that couple weeks, I wanted to ask him like all the big questions, like what made you happy? Because he was like saying like so happy, such a happy dude. I was just like what makes you happy? Like, how did you and Grandma stay together for so long?
Right.
And like I had like all these like random little questions, and he just was like so philosophical in his old age. He's just like just a cruisy guy, very minor as well. But he had like all these things, and he was just so open at sharing. Was there anything that you wanted to talk to your dad about?
There was so many things I wanted to talk to him about, but like I said, at that point in time, like I was probably too, I wouldn't say naive, but I just didn't want to say the wrong thing to make him upset. I hated seeing my dad cry, and I didn't want to bring that out in him. But I do remember there was this one time my grandma and I were sitting next to him in palliative care. Sorry, I've never told anyone this. And I was talking to my grandma whilst holding his hand. And I said, I'm really scared because I don't know what my life looks like without my dad. And she was like, we're all scared, Kaylee, but we're all here for one another. And when she said that, he squeezed my hand, and I was like, oh, like he can hear everything, but he just can't communicate that to us. And that was heartbreaking for me. I was like, this man, like, he would be pulling his hair out. He didn't have much hair, but that was like the biggest question for me is like, how do you feel knowing that your time is like being reduced? Like, yes, you want to see your kids succeed in life and your wife be happy, but it's like, well, what do you want to do for yourself? And it's like, how many regrets did he have in life? What were the regrets he had in life? Because I want to use that in my life. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're questions that I will regret for the rest of my life because I never got to ask them.
He would be so incredibly proud of you.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's hard too, right? Because all you want to hear is like, I'm proud of you.
Yeah. It's thank you so much for sharing, Kaylee. Like, do you want to say it?
No, I'm all good.
Thank you.
Tissue? That's okay. Tears are good.
Tears are good. It's I couldn't imagine being in that position, and it's like I love what you said. Like you feel him that he's with you now. I think that's a special piece.
Yeah.
I think that's a really special piece. Do you have conversations with your sister and mum about him now? Like,
very surface level.
Yeah.
I'd say my sister especially isn't. Like, she doesn't like to get deep and meaningful. So that's really hard. But I do have friends that I have these conversations with, one in particular friend, and she just listens. Yeah. And it's so good to have somebody that just hears you out and, like, supports you. And without that network, like, life would be so hard. And that's not just with that situation. Like, that's just life.
Yeah. Who do you lean on? Who do you go to? Do you have a couple friends for different things?
Yeah, like, I like to keep my life in that way out of swimming.
Yeah.
So I use like quite a lot of my school friends, my friend Laura in particular.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you, Laura.
She's listening.
Yeah,
She's listening.
she was there all the time. And she was like, if it's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., if you need me, call me. Like the greatest friend.
We need friends like that.
Absolutely.
I think that is the biggest piece. And having friends for different reasons as well. Like, I think you said it before, like there's sometimes where I don't want to talk about it. I just want someone to take my mind off it, right?
Yeah.
And let's just go and laugh and take the piss and go for a surf and just do what we need to do. But then there's other times where there's like maybe 2 or 3 friends who I'll just be like, hey man, just need to talk right now. Yeah.
And then start crying.
And then start crying, emotional dump. And then, but it's wild, like how much you feel better. The swimming landscape of mental health. I'm curious to unpick that a little bit because when I first came into rugby league, it was very much like super alpha, super high testosterone environment. Like imagine putting 30 high testosterone blokes
could never
in a room or in a team and just let them go wild, right? But we didn't talk about what was going on. That was my impression when I came into the Bronx.
Yeah.
Like no disrespect to anyone there, I was probably just young, probably didn't talk too much, but that was my impression and probably like rugby league in general. And then like obviously lost a few friends to suicide and I was like, well, I don't want that to happen anymore. And then did some stuff with Movember and whatnot. But I see it slowly changing over time. Like we see a lot of friends have come on this podcast and are just so open. And I think that's why these conversations are important. Like having you come on and talk about like your dad and what he means to you and what you learnt out of it and who you lent on. Like that's, there's going to be so many kids and people out there who'll be like, well, fuck, if Kaylee can talk about it, like that's fine and that's normal. And that means that I can do that as well. Like that's a huge part of it. But I've seen it shift. What's the swimming landscape like? From your time in there, has it changed over time? Is there a good like support network? Like how does that space look?
I would say it's the same as rugby. Like right now it's like the peak of, okay, what can we do better? How do we improve? And with swimming, every major competition that rolls through, we do like a feedback survey and just give that feedback. And 9 times out of 10, they change things. But I think the people within swimming are quite open and honest, especially the females. Like I talk to Molly all the time. We've built a really great relationship. And I remember before her 100 freestyle in Paris, she was like, Kaylee, I'm so nervous. I was like, that's good. It means you care. Your body's ready to go. Yeah. But I think it's so important to not only just have, the people's job, like the psychologists and the coaches who mentor you in that way, but to have the people who are living the same experience as you, to be able to emotionally connect with them as well and know that you're not the only one feeling these things.
And do you think you and Molly get on so well and you're willing to have these conversations is because she's in there with you? Like she probably gets it better than most other friends and family members, I imagine.
Yeah, and I think we're very similar in the way that we have so much anxiety and stress. Like hers you can see, mine you can't, but we feel the same things. And that it's almost a relief when you're able to talk about it because, I'm not crazy. Somebody else is feeling this way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think that's I love that you're just so open and talking about your psyche as well. Yeah. I think that was a huge piece for me as well. It's like figuring out that I can have someone who understands sport and understands the intricacies of professional sport, but they're also like a little bit detached as well.
Yeah.
And just being able to like emotional dump it, and they're like, he's like, this is why you're feeling this way. And I'm like, oh my God, because I think as athletes, like. I think a lot of the times, like we can be very methodical. Like I want to know like why certain things are happening or give me background of why these things are happening. And for them to be like, okay, well this is why you're feeling that way. I'm like, well, I guess that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Do you think that at all?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. And I don't mean to be sexist, but I feel like females within the sport of swimming talk to their psychologists a lot more than males. Someone in our squad, I was like trying to push them. I was like, you don't realize how much of a good feeling it is to just talk things through with somebody and not be in your own head about things. Yeah. And you get worried about certain people because you're like, you realize how much you benefit from it. And you're like, okay, like I just want to show you the light, like move, like leading a horse to water kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, I praise psychologists. Like they would have to deal with a lot. Yeah. And for them to go and process everything I've just dumped on them, I'm like, bless your souls.
Bless them. Oh, well, that's why they get paid the big bucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but I say this on so many podcasts because I feel like it's a valid topic. Like when people go see a sports psycho and they talk to a sports psychologist or even just a general psychologist, doesn't need to be sport, but they might not click with the person or they might not have a good experience on the first one. I was like, and this is the feedback I get from mates. It's just like, hang on, it's like, just because you have a bad experience with one doesn't mean that's the same for all of them, right? I was like, it's like dating. I was like, you're not going to find your fucking love of your life on the first your first date.
Very unlikely.
Which you might, with all the ones who have. But it's like dating almost. Like try a few different ones, see what actually works. Because usually like it might take a couple times for them to actually resonate with someone. But that's a big piece because you see friends who are. Like you can obviously see that they're struggling. You know, there might be a lack of energy. They might be a little bit reserved. They might not be like themselves, or they might be like just canceling events or not showing up for certain things. And you can see that, and it's like, well, how can I help you? Like, you know, because you want to fix it because you know you've had a positive experience as well. Is there anything that you do that you think for like other friends or other swimmers it might not be towards a psychologist, but is there anything that you can do to help? Do you think?
Like I said, I don't think I've actually said it. I'm an open book and I would like to think that people feel comfortable coming to me and speaking to me literally about anything and everything. Like I'm not a scary person. I will listen and I'll try to give you advice if I feel like I can give you advice. And making that relationship. Like I am very big on like, if you have a question in the swimming world that you think I can answer, ask me. Like I will give you the best advice that I can. It may not be the right advice, but it's how I've dealt with something, you know?
But you've been there and you've lived through it. So I imagine is there any like younger swimmers that have come up to you and asked for swimming advice? The
biggest one is like, how do I deal with nerves? And anything that I tell these kids, it's nerves means that you care about what you're doing. It's a good thing that you're nervous, your body's getting ready to race. That's what I was told, and that was something that calmed me down a lot. Like I used to cry in marshalling before a race. I was like, this is so daunting, so scary, and reminding yourself, oh, it's just a race. Yeah. Like my body's ready to go. I'm about to swim fast. Like that's a great feeling.
I love that. That's such a cool thing, and like knowing that you actually care about something. I was telling you just beforehand, we did that trip over to the US. When we were in Boston, we were in the Whoop HQ. And we did a podcast with the VP of product, Alexi Coffey, and she said the exact same thing because she was like a really high level skier before she went into tech, and her skiing coach was saying like, all right, put your hands up if you're nervous, and like some people would put their hands up like, if your hand's not up, it means you don't care, and that you should probably leave this like skiing squad. And obviously, like that's pretty extreme, but it just shows that like. Nerves are fine. Like nerves just mean that you actually care about something, right? I love that piece. I think that's super important. Even like going over there, it was the first time in their HQ, and it's like 8 stories. It's super slick. Like it overlooks the Red Sox stadium.
I could imagine it would be really nice.
It's like a $3.6 billion company.
They're
doing really well, but it's all, and it's a really like great working environment. I'll talk about it more off air. I'm diverting, but like I went in there and this like podcast studio was so nice, and I was like talking to this like really high level like leadership people, and like they brought in some of their like really great athletes, and I was like, I haven't been nervous here in a little while, right? But then I think the thing that I switched was I was nervous, but then also like excited. I started thinking to myself, I was like, oh no, like I'm actually really excited to have this conversation. Like even this morning, like we did a really long run this morning, and I was like, and I don't know, I think I was just, maybe I had like a coffee or something, and I was just a little bit like anxious before you came in, and I was just like, well, I wonder why I'm nervous. I was just like, obviously like you had incredible success like at the Olympics. I was like, is that it? I was like, no, I talked to a lot of people, like that's fine. And then I was just like, change that nerves to like excitement, and then I just got so pumped. And then when you came in here, you're like, hey, I was just like, we started knocking around. I was like, I think that's a cool piece, like changing it from like nerves to being excited.
Absolutely. And if you can find that way, like you said, like just switching it, it's so like such a relief. Like you feel so good doing it. But it made me sad saying that you felt nervous. I'm like, don't be nervous. Like I'm not a scary person. Like I'm just another human being on this earth trying to do life.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And to be honest, like with all due respect, we get to talk to some pretty cool crew. And I don't think I'm not usually nervous around crew. Like that's I think We've done enough of these to not be nervous, but I think it was just a combination of like training really hard this morning, having a coffee, and just being like
sitting with the coffee in your system, like
probably a little bit like wanting to do a good job, and wanting to be prepared. Like I think that's probably a big piece for me, because like you want to be on, like you want this to be a really great interview. Like I'm really grateful that you gave up your time. Like I know that it's special to come in here and have a conversation with you. So I think like I'm really conscious to wanting to do well, and like having the audience and people who are listening to this being like, that was an incredible conversation, and really make you feel comfortable as well, like coming in here. I think that's probably a big part of it.
I can really appreciate that, because in life, like I think the biggest thing as humans, we just want to impress people and like have no judgment. And if people do want to judge, that judgment be a good piece. Like, oh, they were a really nice person. Like they weren't grumpy. They were nice to talk to, friendly, which I have had a good experience. So there you go.
Yeah. You can tell me afterwards.
Yeah.
But do you, when you, before this, you said that on the phone, you're like, I'm an open book. Like you're willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like you're willing to talk about anything. Why is that?
Like why hide? You know what I mean? If I can help somebody in the world, I don't care who it is, if it means that they get to talk to somebody on a deeper level or resonate with what I'm saying, like that makes me feel like I'm helping the world. And that's all I want to do, is help someone.
Do you reckon you've always been like that?
As a kid, like I was always really caring towards people. Like if someone hurt themselves, I'd be the first one. They're like, what can I do? What can I do to help, kind of thing. But it definitely, as getting older, it's turned into like, I want to be able to help people on an emotional level as well. I
love that. And I've heard you say it on, I'm not sure what it was, obviously doing research in the lead up to this conversation. There was something about maybe chipping other swimmers, or like pulling other people into line. You're like, no, like I just want people to be the best that they can be.
Yeah.
And I love that piece. I think that's huge.
A lot of the time people are like, oh, like, you're such a narc, like leave us alone. We're just swimming. We're here to enjoy ourselves. I'm like, I get frustrated. I'm like, if you don't want to be at the pool training and giving 100%, why are you here? Like you're wasting your own time. Like that's the way I view it, because I'm such a black and white person. It is definitely not the right way to view things, but I'm like, why? Like it's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, give everything to the sport so you can leave the sport knowing that you've tried absolutely everything that you can to be the best swimmer and best person that you can be.
Do you think that's why you're going for it? Like having so much success is because you don't want to look back and think, oh, what if?
Absolutely. Yeah. I want no regrets when it comes to swimming. And that's obviously not going to happen. I regret not doing the 200 medley at last Olympics, but I learned from that. I did it this Olympics, still didn't swim the way that I wanted to, but I can't be mad because I manned up and I did it, you know?
What do you think the experiences that you had growing up that led you to be, I don't know, so successful in your career? Like, do you look back and think, is there a few certain experiences that you're like, this actually really helped me get to where I am today?
Yeah, and it comes down to my mum and dad. They worked extremely hard to give my sister and I the life that we had and still have. Like, we didn't just swim, like we played in all these different sports, and, you know, they did struggle financially, but they still provided for us girls, made sure that we had fun. And now I can see that hard work equals success. And that's something that I want to portray. It's like, you know, if you train hard and you keep training hard and chipping away, it may not be something that happens tomorrow, but eventually you will see and reap the rewards.
It's like a consistency piece.
Absolutely, yeah.
How long have you been swimming for?
Competitively since I was 12. I'm 23 now.
Is that pretty? 23. Look at us.
Yeah.
We're getting on. But that's a big piece, like the consistency stuff. But what's different? Because I imagine there's probably a lot of boys and girls who are growing up who are doing equally of the amount of sessions and the amount of volume in the pool. What separates you guys, or what do you think it is?
That's a really tough question, and
I know you're humble, and I know you're going to be humble about it. But like, surely there's got to be a certain thing. Is it just the piece of hard work? Like,
you've got to want it. You've got to want to go to Olympic Games and win gold. Like, without that piece being within you, like, you're wasting your own time. You've got to be hungry, determined, and you feel like you have to prove a point. And I think that also stems back to when I was younger. It's like, I want to prove that I deserve to be here.
And that sort of just stayed through.
Yeah.
I am poking because I want to know. Like, I'm super curious, especially for someone who has had success back to back. I think that's a big piece. Looking forward, another cycle. What's the plans? What's on the cards?
It's been really rocky coming back from Olympics. Like, I've probably felt the most down that I have in a really long time. And again, speaking to my psychologist, like, yeah, like this is just a lull moment. You know, you've come from such a high back to reality and now your whole life's in shambles. Like, my coach is retiring. I don't know where I'm going to end up training. Am I going to go through the next Olympics? Is my body going to allow me to go through to the next Olympics? Am I going to swim fast again? Like, all these things. And I'm like, you're just in your own head and you want to scream at yourself. It's like, you've got 4 years. You don't have to be ready for the Olympics right now. And I know I've mentioned Arnie before, but I spoke to her after Olympics and she's like, I'm okay if I take time off and I don't come back to the sport. She's like, I've done everything and more than what I thought I could ever achieve. And when she said that to me, I was like, oh, like that's really quite nice to hear that. Like that you're okay in your own skin, knowing that what you've done. And I was like, I feel like I could still do more in the sport. But if I feel like if I can't get to LA, I'll be okay. I mean, the main goal is to get there, but I'm just taking a chillax moment.
That's it's the uncertainty piece I grabbed from that. But I also like your reflection on it, where it's just like, no, it's okay, and it's okay to have a rest. Because that was the thing that sort of got me when we spoke on the phone last week, where you're like, yeah, you know, like I'm back in the pool now, and I was just like, been back for a couple of weeks. I was like, what do you mean? I thought you were going to like travel Europe, maybe get a little bit of a colour, a bit of tan, you know what I mean? Like,
what do you mean? I'm not tan?
No, you are tan. Fuck, I stuffed up. Anyway, I'm kidding. But yeah, like you're straight back into it. Like, why is that?
Well, that's literally, like I said, I was in not a dark place, but I was just so down. I'm like, I've got nothing to do. And it's like, because my whole life has been swimming and I've had such a schedule and a regime, I didn't know what else to do. I was like, and everyone else that I'm friends with on the Gold Coast are all swimmers in the same position. And I was like, okay. And I'd like just split up with my boyfriend too. So I was like, what is something that makes me happy? And that was swimming. And I was lucky enough to get selected to go over to World Cups, which is in, I think, 3 weeks. So although I'm back in the pool, I'm training 6 times at like 3.5K, 4K, gotcha. 4.5 max.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite nice being able to go in and choosing what you can and can't do. It's like, like this morning I went in planning on doing the whole session. I got up there and I was like, I only want to do warm up, and then I'm out.
Really? Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, and it is really nice to just be there doing what I love, but also being in control of it, because I feel like as an athlete, you're always told what to do, when to do it, and you always have control of everything. And now I'm like, well, I have control of my life, but I can't control who's my coach and all the rest of it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's controlling the uncontrollables almost.
Or also like getting a nice little massage as well after the session might have been nice. Yeah, that must be nice as well. We got to get you down to Palm Beach more, because this place is the best.
I mean, I would love to live down here, but it's just too far away from the pool.
It's too far for the pool. You said, I think that's probably a big piece for anyone in a professional sporting sense, is like that control piece, or not even control piece, probably like the routine piece.
Yeah.
That's like my day job. I work with the Rugby League Players Association, so I work with players who are retiring out of sport. So if they retire, if they might be moving overseas to a different competition, or if they just don't get a contract. So periods of transition. And that's the biggest piece that I have conversations with those guys about, and girls, who are just like, look, I came into the sport when I was 17. I've been in this for 10 years. And now it's like, we got told, you know, what we're eating, what weight we need to be at for pre-season, our breakfast, lunch, dinner, what training sessions, what to lift in gym, what weights you got to do, what reps you got to do, everything. And then when you finish and you retire, it's just like, well, what am I going to do now?
This is normal life.
This is like, welcome to the real world.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's such a rude shock. Like, I'm not even in the real world yet, but I'm like, holy crap, this isn't nice, you know?
Yeah. What do you do outside of swimming? Do you have any hobbies that you do outside?
I get asked this a lot, because my psychologist was really pushing for me to like find new hobbies. Yeah. When I was on the Sunshine Coast, I loved like going 4-wheel driving and all that kind of stuff. Like this,
really?
The things I used to do when I was a kid, like camping.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But now that I'm on the Gold Coast, I'm like, I don't have that same friend group to go and do that with. And there's not really anywhere on the Gold Coast that's like the Sunshine Coast, you know, you can't go and camp on the beach.
It's not the sunny coast, but you could go like south to like a bit further, which I'm not going to say the spots, but there's some sick spots.
Absolutely. But then there's also time. Like the only day I really get off is a Sunday. And then you've got to be ready on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
So that's the really hard part is, you know, having that balance between swim life, normal life. And my kind of way of relaxing now is going out to my mum and her partner's property.
Nice.
It's very beautiful. They're on like 60 acres. It's just a house and a shed. You can do whatever.
Yeah. You're not riding any motorbikes out there, I hope.
Don't
tell the coach.
I was just going to say,
anyway.
During COVID, I did buy myself a motorbike.
Yes.
And I rode it prior to last Olympics, and then this Olympics, I was like, no, I cannot touch it.
Road bike or dirt bike?
Dirt bike.
Sick. That's so sick.
Yeah.
So you go.
No. It's fun. My sister and I had a lot to do with that kind of stuff when we were younger.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot smaller bikes, but still a fun thing to do.
I remember when I was 18, got my license, got a motorbike, road bike. Went through like this weird, like really adrenaline rush phase. Like got my skydiving license. I was riding motorbikes, real left field. I don't do that anymore. I've settled down. But I remember riding my bike into Bronx, and Wayne Bennett was coach at the time, and he's like one of the best, like like one of the best coaches of all time. And I rode in because there was like another guy, Josh McGuire, who also rode his bike in. And we sit in this team meeting, and there's like 30 blokes in the squad. Wayne's in the front talking to everyone. He walks in, he's like, whose fucking bike's out front? And I'm like 18, 19. I was like, oh
Head
my
down,
God. I was like,
no
oh my
eye
God.
contact.
I was like, yeah, Wayne. I was like, it's mine. And he's like, you better effing get that thing out of here. Or it's like, you better sell that thing, or otherwise you're not coming back to the side. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I like got rid of it like the next week. It was wild. I was so scared. So I resemble with what you're saying.
Yeah. It's like you have to wrap yourself in bubble wrap as an athlete.
Right.
It's like, okay, if you fall off, you're going to break your arm. But it's like I could also roll my ankle walking on the beach,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that's so fair. Do you think about life after sport at all?
At the moment, I try not to because it scares me.
Yeah.
I'm just scared. I'm like, oh, like I just want to make the right decisions in life. And I know that I want to work with people, and whether or not that's in a swimming space or external from that, I'm not sure yet. I would love to have a swim school. And, you know, run that and work with like young families and young kids to then hopefully prop them up to be an Olympian one day. But they're big goals. That'd
be fun. That'd be really cool. I think the best thing that I did when I was going through was I tried a lot of different things. I think that was the biggest thing for me. And I sort of come to the realization that knowing what you don't want to do is just as important as knowing what you want to do. Like I remember like I did a business degree like halfway through an MBA. So I was just trialing with that. But then I'd also go into friends like restaurants or like, because I like food, right? So I went to a fine dining restaurant and like prep for them. Into property, like I like property. So like worked for a mortgage broker. And this is just, when I say worked, I mean like go in for a day a week or like a half day. Just dabbling. And then, but then when I got medically retired at 24, they were like, I was just like, okay, I might not have known what I wanted to do, but I knew all these things that I didn't want to do. And it actually was super freeing. Like it sort of made me think that I actually I really want to help people. It's somewhere in mental health, and sort of had like this part, like kind of direction. And then like now where I'm at and I love it and I wouldn't change anything. So I think that piece of like trialing different things is a huge thing. Yeah.
I'm a huge believer as well that what's meant for you will find you, and you're always on your own path.
Yeah.
Whether that's being happy or sad, I feel as a human, you need to go through all of those to find your right.
I love that. That's gonna be the clip of this podcast. What I think. I want to do a full circle back to. We got off topic with your 100 meter backstroke.
Yes, sorry.
This is an hour later. You said that you were 15 meters from the
finish,
finish line, and you were talking about your dad, and you said that gave you that little bit more because it was like probably one of the biggest races that you were going through. Was that the most special race?
There's been a lot of special races. I think it's always nice when you can touch the wall and see a PB. But I know that that's not going to happen every time. But when you get to a pinnacle of your sport and the pinnacle of your career, you're like, this may be the last time that I stand on the podium with a gold medal around my neck singing the national anthem. And that's what makes it so special, is because I also had my family there for the first time in the stands, watching my mum, tears down her face, my sister like sobbing, seeing them and hugging them. that just meant the world to me because they are the people who got me there.
The swimming, it interests me so much, like, because when you're going in that race, that 100-meter race, like, what are you thinking about? What thoughts come to mind, or is it kind of like a flow state where you're not really thinking?
You're not really thinking, but the most random thoughts, like before we go out behind the blocks, they have like a run call and like call you out, like, Kaylee, go.
Yeah.
And the guy was like holding his hand up, and before I walked out, I like high-fived him. And I walked out, I was like, what did I just do? And then,
oh, fuck.
Yeah, I was like, that's so embarrassing. And the next time I saw him, he had his fist out. So I fist pumped him. But it became like a thing. You know, I saw him for like 11 or 12 events. I can't remember how many. So I was like, yep, all right, we have a friendship now.
Gotcha.
This is just how it is. And some of the other girls picked up on it as well. It's just that having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it playful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful piece. That's so cool. Another thing that I'm interested in is because you obviously do so many Ks in the pool. And I asked the same question to Mac when he was on. I was like, what do you think about in the pool? Because you're swimming for so long every day, like 6, 8, 10, well, however many Ks you guys do. What do you think about?
Oh, so many things. It's more like you get songs stuck in your head and it's just on repeat. You're like, just get out of my head. Get out. But a lot of the time when you're in the pool, you're thinking about stuff outside of the pool. And you're like, oh, my dogs are at home. What am I going to have for dinner? Like, it's the most rogue thought sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
I was like, that would be like the best way to think through like any decisions that you need to make. Like, you come out of the pool, it's like, oh, I've got it all figured out now.
Or when you have like, when you have like a disagreement with someone and you're thinking about a text back to them.
Yeah.
It's like you come up with the best text in your head and you get out and you're like, whoa, what was I going to say?
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, Mac was just like, man, he's like, usually like when it gets a little bit later in the morning, the bacon and eggs start coming out. And so you start getting like whiffs of bacon
smell.
and you're like, oh my God, what are we doing?
He was actually so funny to train with because I said this to you before, he's such a dad that he would be like, oh, bacon, and then just push off.
I love that, man.
Yeah, and he just like, he just did not care. He was just a free spirit.
Yeah. Oh, so good. That's so fun. Yeah, I miss Mac. We miss having Mac and Ella on the Gold Coast. You just have to go to Melbourne.
Yeah.
And travel around.
Or drag them back up here.
Which would be even better.
Yeah.
How, like, zooming back in on Paris, you obviously had like so much success, and you said the 100-meter back was one of the great events. What was it like in the village? Like, obviously you hear like a few different things. What was your experience of the village?
Villages aren't ever going to be perfect. I mean, they've got to accommodate for so many people, and being Australians, we are very privileged and lucky with the accommodation that we do have wherever we go. But, we had cardboard bed frames with very hard mattresses, but we were treated to nice little mattress toppers and like portable air conditioners. Like, by no means was it perfect. And I was in an apartment of 4 people and the other girls were in an apartment of 8. So you can imagine.
8 people in a room?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And our bathroom was bigger than our living space. So there was just stuff everywhere. And it's like so confined. But then the biggest thing for me was the travel to and from the pools. Like, I think the longest I spent on a bus was an hour, and I was sitting on the floor because there was no seats left. So it was either standing for an hour or sitting for an hour.
Yeah.
And no aircon on the buses because it was a green environment.
Yeah.
Olympics. So that was quite shit. But it's like, how do you perform at your peak?
That's what I was going to ask. How do you swim at such a high level with under all these conditions?
That's what I mean. You've got to remind yourself that everyone else is in the same position. Although towards the end, like some of the bigger countries like the US and Canada had their athletes stay in hotels close by to the pool. And I was like, oh, guys, like just make it fair. Come on now.
Yeah.
But it's all learning curves. I was managing my time on the bus by eating my lunches. So I was taking lunch to and from the pool or dinner to and from the pool. And then with, doping control as well. I wasn't getting back to the village until like 1, 2 a.m. sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like you're on this wild roller coaster of like high performance, swimming, being an athlete, then trying to get back into a sleep schedule. It's like a huge roller coaster.
And you didn't do any travel afterwards? You were keen to get back?
I just wanted to come home.
Yeah.
Like we had been away for 8 weeks, and such an emotional roller coaster. Like I can't stress that enough. Like just mentally and physically as well, that I just wanted to get home, sleep in my own bed, be with my comfort food and with my friends and my family, like, and dogs.
Yeah.
Like,
you had a couple doggos?
I've got 2 doggos.
Oh, bless.
Yeah.
What kind?
Long-haired dash hounds.
Oh, bless.
Yeah.
That's so cute. Kaylee, I've loved this conversation. This has been so fun. I've got a huge amount of respect for you to come on and be just so open and vulnerable about your past experiences, where you're at with your psychologist, with your dad, with your nerves and anxiety. Like, huge amount of respect. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No, and thank you for giving me the platform to be open and honest.
I've got a gift for you
Oh.
while we're here.
I'm excited for this. Lululemon.
We're gonna thank our friends at Lululemon for
I love
a
this.
nice gift. Don't you can look at it, but don't read the card out. I've never actually gifted someone a gift like this on the podcast before. So there you go. You're the first.
Aww.
Yeah,
I feel privileged.
Keep that one for the bank.
Thank you.
No, my
Do you want
pleasure.
me to give a little haul?
No, oh sure, yeah. While we're here, this is terrible. This is terrible podcasting for those who are listening and not watching.
Okay, we'll skip this part.
We'll explain
Thank you
it.
so much.
Kaylee is unboxing her Lululemon gift. Yeah.
There's another.
Yeah.
How rude of me. I didn't open up the second card.
Oh, they must have put one in there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, bless
If you want to
their
return
hearts.
anything. Anyway, no, Kaylee, thanks so much. I really do appreciate everything today. Very nice. Hopefully you got some good stuff out. And hopefully those who are listening got to know you a little bit more. I think that's a beautiful piece as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I just want to be able to help people and give back to the community that gave me so much. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks,
Thank
Kaylee.
you.
Check it out.